What is up, guys? We are back with another week two preview, man. We're kicking off this Friday, September 10th, with Jackson State versus Tennessee State. It's going to be a good one in Memphis this weekend, man. I wish I could be there. I got some family in Memphis, but sadly, I'll be watching on ESPN3 at 7 p.m. Central Time. I could not find a game line for this one for some reason. Like, I checked DraftKings, FanDuel, Action Network, like everywhere. I could not find a line for this game, but I am assuming Jackson State is at least a slight favorite. I would imagine somewhere in 7 to 10 point range is about where I would put the line. And for me, we have an extremely interesting matchup this weekend, a SWAC versus OVC matchup. And for me, this is going to be such a great matchup because even though Jackson State won last week, everyone still has a few questions about what this team is really going to look like. What is Shador going to look like in week two? That defense, that offensive line, there's still some questions to answer, even though they got a very impressive week one win. And on the flip side, Tennessee State is going to be fighting so hard to avoid an 0-1 start to kick off the 2021 season. Now, for storylines, huge week one SWAC win, all, technically on the road, even though it was a neutral site game in Florida. On the road, Jackson State gets to win over FAMU 7-6, but there's some questions about the offensive potential. Is it going to be as electric as some people think it is? But the defensive side of the ball looks like the real deal after dominating this weekend. And this weekend, I think they're really going for the title of, man, we could be the most dominant defense in the SWAC. And we're going to possibly be one of the better defenses in the FCS. That's Jackson State's mindset going into this weekend. Now, Tennessee State coming off a very tough loss to Grambling this past weekend up in I believe it was like the Hall of Fame game. I forget exactly what they call it, but they can get some revenge on the SWAC this week if they pull the upset over Deion Sanders and the Jackson State Tigers. Now, there's major questions on both sides of the ball. Eddie George has to have his team play up to their potential. Can Hugh Jackson dial something up to catch this Jackson State defense off guard, create some explosive plays, and make this a competitive game? We're going to find out, but we got to start with the keys, for Jackson State here. It's simple. It's the exact same thing I said last week with a few minor twists because we got some answers on who the playmakers are, but Tennessee State had zero passing threat last week. I believe Grambling completed 4 passes last week, so they were not tested in the back end of their defense. Let Shador distribute to his weapons. Let them go make plays against an unproven secondary. They have the advantage. Take advantage of your strength, man. Trevante Rucker, outstanding last week. 3 catches, 83 yards. He was a problem for FAMU, and just as a matchup standpoint. No one can deal with his length, his catch radius, his ball skills. I don't see anybody in this Tennessee State secondary having a favorable matchup if Trevante Rucker lines up on top of you. And for me, the one thing I want to see this weekend is I want to see Rucker become more of a red zone threat. Even when Jackson State went down there and scored their 1 touchdown last week, I really wanted to see them, get it to some of those big wide receivers. You've got Malachi Wadman. You've got Trevante Rucker. You've got some big targets in the red zone. Utilize them. Let's see how creative you are. Because listen, the saying is a playmaker, as a play caller, the money is made in the red zone. You've got to be able to put the ball, because it doesn't matter what you do in between the 20. In between the 20s, you can move the ball back and forth, but if you can't put up points on the board in the red zone, it doesn't matter. That's where I want to see Jackson State be creative. Let's see what they can do. Can they put some points on the board? Because we know their kicking cannot be trusted. Give some of these big guys a chance. I think Rucker is your number one option. Now, Josh Lanier was supposedly banged up late in the game last week, but everything I've read and heard is that he should be good to go this weekend, barring a last-second change. He is a matchup nightmare for almost anyone Jackson State plays in terms of, being versatile and where they can line him up. Last week, I loved how Jackson State utilized his speed on underneath routes. Now, why this is important is on underneath routes, a lot of the times, especially if the defense plays zone underneath, they'll trade off. So once he comes across the formation, one linebacker or safety or corner will trade him off to the next one on the other side of the defense, and then they'll switch jobs almost. He's too fast to do that. FAMU tried to do that multiple times, and he outran the other defender because he had a running start and they didn't. He's too fast for you to come off flat-footed and try to keep up with him when he's already, in second or third gear. And for me, even when you play man on him, there's, especially in the slot, which is where he's usually going to play, there's not that many slot corners, and or God forbid you have a linebacker fall on him. They're not going to be able to keep up, and he is going to make you pay. He was the leading pass catcher last week with 6 receptions. If he's healthy this week, I would expect him to lead the team in receptions again. Listen, I get it. Shedeur played fine last week. I thought, nothing spectacular, but he did his job and didn't turn the ball over through the air. He did have some fumbles. Hopefully it's not raining this weekend in Memphis. I didn't check the weather. If it's raining in Memphis, it could be another problem, but I don't believe it's projected rain in Memphis this weekend. He doesn't have to do anything special. Don't force anything. Make the right decisions and play within your offense and game plan. You don't have to go out there and be Patrick Mahomes. All you got to do is be Shedeur Sanders in Jackson State's offense this weekend. That's it. You don't have to go out there and force plays or try to do something over the top. Get the ball to Josh Lanier. Get the ball to Corbin. Get the ball to Rucker. You have so many options on the outside, and you even got Peyton Pickett coming out of the backfield. So just get it to your playmakers. And don't worry about anything else. You don't have to be anything more than that. Tennessee State's D-line really didn't show me anything last weekend. And so for me, if they don't have that true pass rusher, they don't have a guy who can go create his own pass rush. So for me, they need to rely on being creative. And I love what Jackson State did early last week. And it's what I said, when we had the round table on All Scripts channel. I said that FAMU needed to be creative to get pressure, confuse the O-line, get favorable matchups, make them miss a block, make them miss a defender, and you get an open shot at the quarterback. Jackson State did that. They confused the FAMU offensive line. They were shifting the wrong way. The running back was on the wrong side of the formation, and they were getting to McKay in like a millisecond. And Niles Gaddy went untouched like 6 times in the first half. That has to be Tennessee State's D-line's game plan. If they are like FAMU and lack any sort of creativity, Tennessee State is going to get picked apart because Shedeur is going to have all the time in the world in the pocket. They're going to be able to run the ball, and Tennessee State is going to have 0 shot in this game. Now, on the offensive side of the ball for Tennessee State, so the key for Tennessee State for me is establish the run. Because that was the one weak spot I saw on this Jackson State defense last week, is running inside the tackles and really, into those A gaps, maybe the B gaps sometimes. That's the weak spot. And then also we saw the abysmal quarterback play for Tennessee State last week. It was bad, and we'll get to that. But last weekend, the Rattlers were able to establish the run game when they committed to it. Now, when they got into second and third and longs, they put themselves in bad positions. They couldn't sustain drives. They had a lot of success running inside. Bonnet and Jennings both averaged over 5 yards per carry, and Tennessee State has a promising running back in Devin Starling from Memphis, transfer from Memphis, who will be playing in the Liberty Bowl again. The reason this is, and I went back and watched, and even I talked to All Script about it and CFL in like a group message we had. The Jackson State D-line, especially the interior guys, are hyper aggressive. They over pursue in their gaps. And so Tennessee State needs to do like Bonnet did at times, utilize this, use the cutback lanes, and use their aggression to their advantage. Utilize delayed handoff, utilize counters, long developing plays that get this D-line up the field. Cut behind them, and you'll have better gaps. And then all your offensive lineman has to do is pick up a linebacker here or there, and you have big plays consistently. That is the key for them. Now, the reason this is because Jackson State's D-line is filled with pass rushers. They are so aggressive. They want to make a play, but if they don't maintain gap protection, there are plays to be made on the inside of this defense, and it was shown multiple times in the FAMU game. It was just for some reason FAMU thought McKay had to throw the ball 20-something times instead of giving Bonnet the ball up the middle multiple times. That was what went wrong. And for me, the offensive line for Tennessee State has to come to play. They must win the line of scrimmage, because if Jackson State forces this team to be one-dimensional one way or the other, it's going to be a blowout. Tennessee State won't stand a chance. They only averaged about 3.5, I think it was 3.7 yards per carry last week, only had 112 rushing yards. But to win this game, they have to rush for no less than 150, and I think just as a unit have to get to 200 total yards rushing. That's the key to victory for Tennessee State. And, Davian Bryant is a nice change of pace back to go along with what they have in Starling. But for me, they got to be a great 1-2 punch. That's exactly what FAMU did with Jennings and Bonnet. That's what Tennessee State needs to do this weekend. And now for the matchup to watch, for me, it's going to be the Tennessee State passing game. Just the entire passing game, quarterback and wide receivers against this Jackson State secondary, because the passing game last weekend was abysmal for Tennessee State, and the secondary for Jackson State is the strength of this team, in my opinion. Now, when you look at last week, Tennessee State had 3 quarterbacks attempt passes, and the results varied, I would say, pretty greatly. And I would imagine after last week, I haven't heard any formal announcement. I would imagine Jeremy Hickbottom would get the start this weekend based off of performances last week. Hickbottom went 8 for 10 for 65 yards. Bryant went 4 for 12 for 22 yards. Can't have that. That's McKay-like. And then Pope went 1 for 2 for 31 yards. I didn't see a large enough sample size for him to get in there. I would assume Hickbottom won due to his performance last week, his experience in big games, his ceiling, and just his arm talent as a whole is a little higher than some of these other guys who got time. I think he gives Tennessee State the best chance to win at quarterback, because Bryant looks like a recipe for another McKay game, and that's a losing recipe for Tennessee State. Now, Jackson State, their secondary was not really tested due to some poor quarterback play last week, especially with McKay. They responded well when they put a more efficient passer in the game late in the junior kid, but they limited FAMU to only 125 passing yards, and they have some talented wide receivers, so you have to give them a little bit of credit. And they didn't allow a pass over 20 yards. I believe it's Cameron Salmon, Shiloh Sanders, Dejon Warren, and C.J. Holmes are going to probably be a collection of the best secondaries that Tennessee State sees all season. I love the Cameron kid. He played lights out. Shiloh was a bruiser, and Dejon and C.J. Holmes, you already know about them. But for me, I'm gonna give them a challenge. I want to see these guys take the next step as a unit and force some turnovers. All these guys can be playmakers, and I expect big things against a team that really lacks a complete wide receiving core outside of 1 or 2 guys, and also some inefficiencies at quarterback, along with just that offense isn't in rhythm right now. I want to see these talented guys force some turnovers this week, and that's the challenge for Jackson State that I see, is to get some interceptions, maybe Shiloh get a fumble. I want to see this defense force some turnovers against a team who should be able to throw the ball a bit more efficiently than FAMU did last week. So that's the matchup to watch for me. But man, looking at this game, I just personally don't. As creative as Hugh Jackson is, I think he'll find a way to get some points. But for me, I think that Tennessee State right now lacks the overall talent to keep up. I see Jackson State pulling away in this one. I see maybe, a close game in the first quarter, but I think down the stretch, Jackson State wears this Tennessee State team down. I think Jackson State gets the big win this weekend, 30-13 in Memphis. That is my pick. The Jackson State Tigers 30, Tennessee State 13. Guys, if you're new, hit that subscribe button, man. I appreciate the support, and like the video. Give it a big thumbs up. Definitely would appreciate that. And comment your scores predictions below. Listen, it's not a lot of money, but I've figured I'd do this for like the game of the week. If you comment your score prediction below and you hit it on the dot, we will send you $20 for getting the score prediction right this weekend. So make sure to comment your score below, like the video, and also subscribe if you're new. But comment, get the score exactly right below, and we'll send you $20 for getting that right, man. Do a little giveaway. I figured it'll be good and fun, man. But guys, I appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll have more week 2 previews dropping this afternoon, and go back and check out all our content from this week. We got so much week 2 content out right now. But guys, hope y'all have a safe weekend. If you're traveling to Memphis, may y'all have a blast. But for right now, the Blue Bloods are out.